Let the blood flow in a crimson tide. Let it pour through their meager veins and drown their prating priests. Let it sweep away the corpse emperor's pitiful armies and submerge his worlds in an ocean of gore. So demands the mighty Khorne, and so it shall be. Let's talk tactics, Khorne Berzerkers.
Anvil of War! Let's talk tactics!
What's up, guys? We're here today to talk to you a little bit of tactics about one of my oldest serving units in my collection, Khorne Berzerkers. These guys are an iconic unit in Warhammer 40k. A melee frontline Berserker unit is just a glorious unit, and I was always drawn to Khorne when I first started playing 40k, so I had a bunch of these guys, and over time I painted more and more of them. That now I have quite a bit, and on the 40k tabletop they're actually really good if they can make it to combat. So let's talk a little bit about what is a Khorne Berzerker. So Khorne Berzerker is a Space Marine hybrid. He carries the kind of the same chassis as a Space Marine in terms of stats. He's got 6-inch movement, 3-up weapon skill, ballistic skill, and toughness 4. Leadership 7, 3-up save. Sounds like a Space Marine, right? What sets Khorne Berzerkers apart is they are strength 5 with 2 attacks. Only 1 wound, which makes them kind of soft, but the nice thing about Khorne Berzerkers is they pile in and fight twice. That's crazy because that 2 attacks suddenly becomes 4. We're going to talk a little bit about the different stratagems and the legion traits that we can take to really make our Khorne Berzerkers really pop on the table, and in addition some unit synergies with a lot of the HQ options that we have in the Chaos Space Marines Codex. So, starting with equipment options, the Khorne Berzerker has almost nothing. He starts with his bolt pistol and chainsword. As an option, you can drop either your bolt pistol or your chainsword for a chain axe for 1 point. Now, for that 1 point, you get +1 strength, +1 AP. That's amazing. For 1 point, I'll take it. And do you want to get rid of your bolt pistol or your chainsword is a real question. And for me, it's without question, why wouldn't you drop the bolt pistol? Sure, you have no ranged attacks, but you're a Khorne Berzerker. You're meant for melee. And tooling your Khorne Berzerkers up with 2 different melee weapons is actually a huge boon for many reasons. Let's say, for instance, you get in combat with a Gene Stealer. Now, a Gene Stealer has an invuln save and is toughness 4. Khorne Berzerkers are wounding you on 3s anyways, and the AP isn't going to help with the chain axe. So in this instance, it'd be amazing to use your chainsword because you have the additional attack at strength 5. However, on the other hand, let's say you go up against something like a Hormagon. A Hormagon only has a 6-up armor save, and being strength 6, you'd be wounding it on 2s, taking away its armor save with the AP 1 on the chain axe. Can you see how it's useful having the 2 different weapon options? And honestly, a bolt pistol's not really going to help in either of those cases. Now, not having a ranged attack doesn't really benefit the other war gear options. 2 models in the unit can take plasma pistols, which can be really good if you're going up against Space Marine heroes, for instance, because all of a sudden you're in combat with them, you're dealing lots of attacks to them, and then in your next shooting phase, if you're still stuck in and they're still alive, you can shoot the plasma pistols in combat, which can just add a little more danger to a Khorne Berzerker's unit. Now, you can always throw a frag grenade or a crack grenade with the unit, so I like to just do it with the champion. The champion, on the other hand, is a really interesting choice because there's a lot of equipment options with strength 5 that can be really good. I like to always include a power fist on my champions because it makes him strength 10. And while he can draw from all the other melee weapons, why not take the power fist? Strength 10 power fist, wounding most vehicles, knights on 3s, and I mean, you have +1 attack, so really, when a Khorne Berzerker piles in and fights, you're having double the power fist attacks that you normally would have. I like to put a chainsword on my Khorne Berzerker champion as well, in the case that you get tied in with some kind of horde unit like Orc Boys or Hormagaunts or Chaos Cultists, you name it. The chainsword will just dump out enough attacks that you'll be able to do horrendous damage to any kind of horde unit that the Khorne Berzerkers might make contact with. But in taking the power fist, you can also pose quite a threat for enemy vehicles and elites. So unit size has to start at a 5-man unit. Now, I like to personally fill a Rhino with these guys because it's just a good delivery option. It's cheap to get your Khorne Berzerkers up the board and getting into your enemy's face, and obviously giving the extra movement when they disembark from the Rhino just to get that charge off. Another piece of equipment option that I might have forgot to talk about was the Icon of Wrath. One of the Khorne Berzerkers can take that. For 10 points, that allows you to reroll your charge. I think it's fantastic, and it kind of, if you have the extra points in your list, just guarantees you that ability to get into combat, or at least gives you the reroll on those harder, longer charges that a Khorne Berzerker might have to make. I personally like to just thematically build my Khorne Berzerker units in a unit of 9, 1 being the champion, and then you have 8 Khorne Berzerkers, the sacred number of Khorne. This unit, however, can pump its size up to almost 15, 20. I don't think you want to ever go more than a capacity of a vehicle, because foot slogging your Khorne Berzerkers is not good for Khorne Berzerkers, because anything like a heavy bolter or an assault cannon can drop your Khorne Berzerkers very quickly. And there's no greater feeling of defeat than watching your expensive elite models or troops, if you're playing World Eaters, just kind of get slaughtered in the open. So protect your Khorne Berzerkers with some kind of transport if you want them to make it up the board and reap skulls for the Skull Throne. So some synergy units and characters that you can use with your Khorne Berzerkers. Let's just go down the HQ list for Chaos Space Marines. Obviously, if you are running a World Eaters army, Khorne Berzerkers are absolutely amazing, because not only are they a troop slot, but they get +1 attack on the charge. Taking World Eaters allows you access to Khorne the Betrayer, the Berserker Lord himself. Now, what Khorne the Betrayer does is he allows you to reroll all failed hits in the fight phase, but any ones that he rolls is on units within 1 inch of him, so he can quickly turn on you, hence his name, the Betrayer. Obviously, if you want to take a safer approach, you can use something like a Dark Apostle to reroll your fight phase stuff. But I also like an Exalted Champion in the Rhino riding with them. Hence why I always do the units of 9. You always leave that 1 slot for an HQ option that can hop out with your Khorne Berzerkers and buff them in some way. The Exalted Champion allows them to reroll all failed wound rolls in the fight phase, which is absolutely phenomenal for Khorne Berzerkers. But getting the rerolls on the hits is also important. So something like a Chaos Lord, a Demon Prince, Chaos Lord on a Juggernaut, although he is now classified as Legends. I still think in a casual game that is usually where my World Eaters are, people don't want me to not take the Chaos Lord on a Juggernaut. He's just so iconic and cool, and people like playing against him, and I like playing him. So he can allow the reroll ones as well. But basically any kind of HQ option that allows you to reroll ones is helpful. Obviously you have Khorne the Betrayer allowing full rerolls on that. So using your Exalted Champion, that's pretty much all the stuff that's going to really benefit Khorne Berzerkers. Unless you had some Psychic in your army as well. You had Chaos Sorcerers, and obviously with the Dark Apostles they have all their litanies of hate now that they can use on Khorne Berzerkers, some of which are absolutely phenomenal. So let's get in and talk about that. So with the Dark Apostle and his prayers to the Dark Gods, there's 3 that stand out for me that you'd want to use with your Khorne Berzerkers. Obviously the first one is Benediction of Darkness. That gives the Khorne Berzerkers -1 to hit against ranged weapons. So if you get caught in the open, let's say your Rhino, your Land Raider, whatever your transport method, goes down and your Berserkers get out and they're like, I got a foot slog now. Using Benediction of Darkness is good because they become -1 to hit, meaning that your opponent might then train their ranged weapons on another thing, allowing your Khorne Berzerkers to kind of go without getting shot up early in the open. Another one I'd like to use on Khorne Berzerkers is Soul Terror Portent. This one's really good because it allows them to get +1 to wound in the fight phase. Now, this is kind of like Veterans of the Long War, and it would stack. We're going to talk about Veterans of the Long War. But getting +1 to wound anything is huge, especially being Strength 5. That means Toughness 8 things like Knights or any of your big vehicles, Khorne Berzerkers would be wounding them on 4s. Now let's say you have that Exalted Champion and you're rerolling all failed to wounds. See how that can get nasty? The last one is Illusionary Supplication. This is a great one for Khorne Berzerkers because they lack any kind of invuln and they only have a 3-up armor save. So let's say you get caught in the open, or you are in the fight phase and you want to keep your Khorne Berzerkers rocking. The Dark Apostle can give them a 5-up invuln save, which is great, but that would also mean your Dark Apostle isn't giving them reroll all failed to hits. So you got to kind of choose which one you want to use if you're stuck in melee at that point. But both would be really good if you want to either keep them alive or just do more damage. It's very situational. So some of the best strategies and stratagems with Khorne Berzerkers are actually made in building your list. A big thing when taking Khorne Berzerkers to consider is what Legion trait do you want them to have for the battle. Now obviously something like taking generic Renegades allows them to advance and charge, which is huge, but you can also do that with Red Corsairs. You can also take Black Legion because including Abaddon you might have Death of the False Emperor on a 5+. However, I like to run my Berserkers as World Eaters simply for the +1 attack and because we are the chosen of Khorne. Another great one to choose, obviously, because Khorne Berzerkers can be taken off all the different legions, is Alpha Legion. Alpha Legion has some cool different stratagems that they can use to benefit Khorne Berzerkers. So let's talk a little bit about those stratagems. Obviously, World Eaters have a lot of stratagems, and I'll save them for last. But Alpha Legion, for instance, has the Conceal stratagem. Now, Conceal makes the Khorne Berzerkers not targetable by ranged weapons unless they're the closest model. This is very similar to Nurgle's Cloud of Flies in the Death Guard Codex, and can keep a unit like Khorne Berzerkers alive, or let's say there's one kind of shooting attack on the other side of the map and you're already engaged and you know they're going to fall back. Well then, if you have something in between them, the Khorne Berzerkers will remain safe. So this can be a really good thing at keeping your Khorne Berzerkers alive, either if you're on the front line or just trying to minimize the damage you're taking while you're crossing the table. So World Eaters and Alpha Legion share a similar stratagem that can benefit Khorne Berzerkers. It's called Apoplectic Frenzy, or Forward Operatives for Alpha Legion. And what this allows you to do is move 9 inches after the first, before the first battle round after deployment. Now this can be very useful if for some reason you want to just foot slog your Berserkers, getting that extra 9-inch move and then being able to move again. Being Alpha Legion, you'd be -1 to hit outside of 12 inches, so that can help, but being World Eaters, you'd have +1 attack on the charge, so if you're getting that much closer to your enemy, a charge is coming. These are great stratagems, on top of some of the World Eater stratagems that we now have available thanks to the Faith and Fury book that recently came out. One of my favorite is Wild Fury. This is a crazy stratagem for 1 command point that increases the AP of your Khorne Berzerkers melee weapons till the end of the phase. Now because we pile in and fight twice, that's a lot of attacks, and you can pay for Fury of Khorne, which allows them to fight a 3rd time. Doing this, obviously with AP -2 chain axes or -1 chain swords, can do horrendous amounts of damage to your opponent's lines. I really recommend this one, and I really think it's cool, and it's something kind of new and different that we can play with and use with the Khorne Berzerkers. Another great stratagem for the World Eaters is Kill, Maim, Burn for 1 command point. This allows your Khorne Berzerkers to pile up, not pile up, but consolidate 6 inches as opposed to 3. That's huge, and for kind of the more tactical melee players, you can see how this is a really useful tool for the toolbox. Because Khorne Berzerkers consolidate and pile in twice, right? So that can be a lot of bonus movement moving up the board using that stratagem. So another command point can be spent on Stoke the Nails, and against Imperial armies this is great because it basically takes the effects of Abaddon's Warlord trait and gives it to the World Eaters. What that is it triggers Death of the False Emperor on a 5+ as opposed to a 6. Extra attacks never hurt Khorne Berzerkers because they already have so many, but if you just want to bury your opponents in attacks, let's do it. One final stratagem to really consider, and one that you get to yell with glory, is Blood for the Blood God. And this is very characteristic of this army and this unit. So when it destroys a unit in the fight phase, until the start of your next turn, you automatically pass morale checks. This is huge if you want to include cultist units in your army, or if your Khorne Berzerkers just take a ton of damage, but there's still some of them left. You don't have to worry about the others. I don't consider them fleeing. I think they just turn on themselves in shame and start killing each other, because that's what Khorne Berzerkers do. They would never run away from battle. So some closing thoughts on Khorne Berzerkers. This is honestly one of my favorite melee units in the game, just because they chuck so many dice, but they actually die easy. So Khorne cares not from where the blood flows, and your opponent will be demoralized when they get hit by the Khorne Berzerkers, but when they realize how easy they are to kill, they don't feel so bad. But there's not many of them left at that point. So I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video. Let's get out there and get some skulls for the Skull Throne, and I'll see you next time.
Sponsored by...
So if you want some more skulls for the Skull Throne, click that subscribe button down below. It really helps our channel, and we'll see you guys next time. Apoplectic. Apoplectic. Soul par... Bleak. There we go.